What a wonderful audience. Thank you very much for those kind words, but blimey, what a reputation to live up to, a master of improvisation. That doesn't allow me any room to fail, does it? Which is key to improvisation, the willingness to embrace the possibility of failure. You don't love failure, but you love the possibility of failure, because if there's no possibility of failure, is it really worth doing anything at all? It's just boring and obvious, isn't it? So they sent me the brief some time ago. Can we talk about where do great ideas come from? And I went, yeah, I'm sure I can do that. And I put it away. And then this morning I looked at it and it said, where do great ideas come from? And I thought, I haven't the faintest idea where great ideas. I really haven't the faintest idea. I got in a bit of a funk and a panic, and I felt like, oh God, I mean, huge pressure. This is being filmed, isn't it? So I want to explain to you what that felt like. Please take a look at one of your neighbours, especially one that you don't know already. Just have a look. Say hello. Okay, thank you. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to do something. Don't do it yet, okay? In a moment, I'm going to ask you to turn to that neighbour and say something awesomely original. Is that okay? Not yet. How are you feeling now? Yeah, that's how I felt this morning and then into the afternoon. And in fact, as I cycled to the tube and then got on the tube and then I wrote some notes and I went, oh! Anyway, so that's how it can be, and that's rather alarming. And one of the key insights of improvisation is don't be original. For God's sake, don't be original. Just be obvious. Because your obvious is really original to someone else. I mean, those guys just now, that's their obvious. And so I urge you to think about being obvious. So now just turn to that neighbour again and say something really obvious. Just relax. Just say something obvious. Whatever. Okay. Shh. Thank you. Wow, what a lot of happiness comes from saying something really obvious. I'm feeling like I'm blissed out and maybe I should leave at this point. But I want to talk about why it was that first thing leaves you in a feeling of total dread. Well, one of the things is the stakes are way too high. You're just terrified by what might happen. And one of the reasons why the stakes are so high is I asked you to do something which is totally boundless. Say anything, it's like anything in the whole universe. What? There's no restriction. If I'd at least say something really original about an elephant, you'd think, well, I can work on that. You need some sort of restriction. So for me, if you see people in the supermarket, they're intimidated by the number of things there are. So they all buy the same 5 items every year, all the time. People cook the same things because it's easier. So we're intimidated by variety and unboundedness. So once I started getting my vegetables delivered in a box, I started to be really creative because I didn't order a cabbage, but I've got to do something interesting with it. Do you see what I mean? So you restrict yourself, you become more creative. But another reason why that first thing that I suggested to you is intimidating is because we live in a society that thinks that the people who are creative and who do great things and have great ideas are sort of those people over there, the geniuses, and we're over here. So this idea of a genius is a sort of an idea that comes from the Enlightenment, and we don't need to go into it. If you think about so-called primitive societies where everyone's really creative, it's often, not always, because they believe that they're doing it on behalf of God. They're sort of transmitting something. So there's a lovely story, true story, about a certain type of people who live in Greenland who carve whale tusks, walrus tusks, and they, whatever comes out of the walrus tusk, it might be an interesting person or it might be something else. But they don't blame themselves if it comes out badly. They say, God put a not a very interesting thing inside that tusk. It's not their fault. So they do it, it's okay, they relax, they're detached, they're transmitting for God. And the word inspiration comes from being breathed into on behalf of God. So if you find any of this difficult, just pretend there's a God. Okay, just do that, it's an easy escape route. So it's not all about you. I just did, it was God. So you can relax. And on this point about being a transmitter, I'm standing here saying a lot of this stuff which I owe to other people. We're never being really original. Billy Childish, the painter, told me something once which was a lovely relief. He said it had taken him years and years to stop caring what other people thought of his paintings. And he said it took him a few more years to stop caring what he thought of his paintings. And once he could do that, he could paint without any boundaries at all. He's he's incredibly prolific. And another person who's been very inspiring for me, and who I recommend you all go and look up, is Keith Johnston, who basically invented improv. And Keith trained me. And he came up with games like the one I'm going to ask you to do in a minute, where you can't fail, and it's all really lovely. And being obvious is really good. And I've done all the work. I'm not going to ask you to do anything very clever or creative. I've come up with a story. There's a story in my head, okay? I've thought very hard about it. It's a brilliant story. All I ask you to do is ask me questions to which there's a yes or no answer about the story, and see if you can work out what it is. I'm going to step down so I can hear you, and if I hear a question, I'll ask you to put your hand up, otherwise it could be chaos. Put your hand up, just ask the question, I'll answer it, and we'll ask someone else. So, anybody with a question. Notice if you're feeling slightly like you don't want to. That's all okay. Just, yes. What's the story about?
What's the secret of the universe?
It's got to be a question about this story. A yes or no answer. So, for example, it could be, has it got a princess in it? But I'll leave you to ask the questions. What are the questions?
What's the story?
Ask me a question. Ask me one that I can say yes or no to.
Is it a boring story?
Maybe. Sorry, I sometimes have to say maybe. I know.
Is
Anyone?
it about people?
Is it about people? No.
Mystical creatures?
Yes. Mystical creatures. I'm going to repeat these. Anything else? Is it religious? Yes.
Is it funny?
Maybe.
Is it set in the past, the present, and the future?
Yes or no?
Is it set in the past?
Yes.
Is it set in the future?
No. Thank you. Any more questions?
Did you write it?
You've ever told?
Is it the best story I've ever told? Yes.
Did you write it?
Yes. Shall I put you out of your misery? Shall I put you out of your misery? Okay, I'm going to return to the stage. Okay, I didn't have a story in my head at all. Not at all. I was going to say yes if you asked a question that ended with a consonant, no if it ended with a vowel, and maybe if it ended with a Y, sorry. And so the thing is, you all invented the story, but you all looked really relaxed. It's like no pressure. It wasn't you. It was like God did it. None of you were responsible. But actually, you were responsible. You came up with it, not me. So it's a little trick, but you can try that on people who say they've got no imagination. Everyone comes up with stuff. All of your imaginations will have been producing things at some level. And it's a little bit like when you're in the bath. It doesn't take a lot of effort to daydream, does it? You imagine. It's very relaxing when you can get yourself into that state. So where do good ideas come from? They come from that sort of experience, that kind of state. We know we can hold them back by certain things, like asking someone to do something really intimidating. But if you're unbounded and free and relaxed, then they come forward like nobody's business. So another game that you can play, and I'm slightly losing track of how long I've got here. Thank you. Is a lovely game where you simply can't go wrong. And this time I want you to play it with your neighbour. It's called the presents game. And one of you is going to give the other a present. But what makes it impossible to go wrong is the recipient decides what the present is. That's a nice feeling, isn't it? So it might go a bit like this. John Paul, here's a present. Oh, thank you, it's a carved giraffe. That sort of thing, whatever it is. So I'm really pleased because I decided it was a carved giraffe. Do you see? So just give each other presents. Take turns. See how it feels to receive the present that you wanted. Off you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was really unfair for these guys because there's an odd number sitting on this side. So some of you didn't get a chance. I feel really sad because everyone else looked really happy. How was it for everyone else? Amazing. Everyone was happy. So it's nice to work with what you're given. This is another really important insight in improvisation. You have no script. You can only go with what the other people on stage are doing. That's your only clue to where you're going to end up. So you accept everything that happens as an offer. Everything is an offer, even the bad stuff. So if they go, hands up, that's an offer because you can go, or you can get out your gun and shoot them down. Whatever it is, whatever they do, it's an offer. And when you start seeing everything that happens as an offer in the whole world, not just on stage, life seems to be full of the most amazing abundance. It's a really wonderful, wonderful state to be in. So work with what you've got. Have whatever you've got. Don't think you can't do it until you've got that thing over there. You've got whatever you've got is just right. So receiving those presents is a good way of sensing that you've got what you want. And if other people like what you're creating and putting out there, that's wonderful. But do it to please yourself. When you receive the presents, it was a pleasure for you. If the donor looks quite happy that you were happy, that's nice too. But with creativity, if you constantly hold yourself back by thinking, oh God, is anyone going to think this is good or not? You're not going to do it. So enjoy it for your own sake. But another thing I want to talk about is how important it is to remember that it's not only the brain that comes up with ideas, it's the body. The body comes up with ideas like you can't believe. And so a wonderful game that I can't, again, I'll demonstrate on my own. You would play this with two people. One of us would be sitting down like this, looking a bit blank and a bit worried because they don't know what's going to happen. And they're not allowed to speak until they're working out what has happened. And the other one comes on stage and has to do something, also can't speak. And this one speaks only when they work out what's going on. And I can speak when they speak. So I'm going, okay, and then I come on and I go, And so I put on my gloves or whatever it is. And then I sort of tilt the head back and they go, I don't want them all taken out. And so they've worked out that they're in the dentist. So that's how the game works. But when you're playing it, you don't come on the stage knowing what you're going to do. You come on without the faintest idea what you're going to do. And it's a total panic, really big fear. And the way you work out what you're going to do is do something with your hands. So recently I played it with someone and they did that thing. And they didn't know what they were doing with this, but this person helped them work it out. And another one came on stage, he was terrified, and he was standing there with his hands in his pocket, and that was okay, that was enough. So he realised he was standing he went over and checked the times of the bus. And then this one said, how long have you been waiting? So whatever you're doing, just do something. And then it will work itself out. If you think about it, that's what musicians like pianists do when they're composing. They don't think what's the tune going to be like and then play it. They just go, ooh, what happens if I do that? And if I'm drawing a picture, which I do quite a lot, I don't know in advance what the outcome's going to be, because then it would be like join the dots. So you draw, you put your hand on, you start. Where do you start? Well, where do you start when you're eating spaghetti? You just start. You don't choose the right one. So I want you to think about how you can just do something. If you're feeling a bit stuck, just do something and go, what am I doing? Oh, I'm shaking some maracas. Okay, right. Or whatever. I didn't practice that, by the way. That wasn't on my plan. That was completely invented. So whatever you're doing, realise that you can use your body, be playful, get yourself out of the way, transmit on behalf of God, Billy Childish or Keith Johnston. Don't try too hard. In fact, don't try at all. Just do it. Thank you very much.